you everyone for taking a seat. So welcome this morning on this glorious day. Welcome back. If you it's great to see some people are back for another Clubhouse series event. Thank you for coming back. Woohoo. For those people who are new, welcome. And we hope you come away with some learning today or meet a new connection. And this is our 10th Clubhouse series, Precisify. Now Precisify, actually the second is Precisify, previously Precise TV. And looking forward to having the event today. So with that, I'd like to introduce Christian Dankel, our co-founder and co-CEO, to the stage.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming this morning. A beautiful day, glorious day. And it's our 10th Clubhouse series. And as Dennis said, used to be known Precise TV, but now Precisify. And there's not only the 10th Clubhouse series, but I'm so glad to announce that it's now been 10 years, Precisify as a company. So our birthday. Now we've got an amazing lineup today. Amazing speakers. We've got two panels, one focusing more on influencer creator marketing, another one on elevating brands. And we've got a keynote from YouTube. The wonderful Izzy joined us today. Welcome, Izzy. Now, let's dive into a bit of a background here. The agenda, you can see there's going to be a break. You can load up on coffee and lots of good food as well in between our sessions. But here is to 10 years. 10 years of Precisify. And what we have done is we expanded into 5 countries over the period of 10 years. And what really made us so proud is that there are 21 awards. And thank you so much I see a lot of clients here we won awards with. Thank you so much. This really means the world to us. And the outcome of that has been a study by PwC interviewing our clients, our global brands. And the outcome was a 94 NPS, a Net Promoter Score, that really is down to what our clients are thinking about the work and the outcome that we have delivered for them. And we are so grateful. We see lots of partners here from the agency side. We see brands joining us as well as media companies. This is really what makes us work harder and innovates the industry. That's what we do on a daily basis, like having that approach to making your life better through the AI and the data that we bring to life. And some of that data in the research form we're going to present today. Now, let's talk about the team, right? You can spot some of the team members that you sometimes only see on LinkedIn. They're here, even some of our operations team, developers, finance. So they spotted around here in the room. Happy for you to chat with them. But this is really what makes a company great. It's the people behind. It's not just the AI. It's not just the data. It's the whole package. And I'm so grateful for everyone that is in the company on the journey with us, with you as a client and a brand, as we celebrate our 10th anniversary as Precisify. Now, let's talk about 2 amazing new products. Now, 10 years we've been innovating the space in the YouTube, in the social media space, analyzing lots of videos, channels, context, making sure that every story finds its audience. We've expanded now last year into the influencer space. Because if you think about a creator and the video and the content that they are creating, that context really, really matters. But as we all know in the industry, things have changed. 80% of reach of a creator is now non-follower reach. So it's no longer like that followers that you're building up. It's so important that if you want to make sure a campaign delivers the right audience and has all of the return of investment for you as a brand and an agency, you really think about the amplification and paid media, which we really help. And one of the things that really stand out are reach without attention is wastage. And that's what we are here. We're going to be preventing that the beautiful content that you are creating with creators, the big ideas, are not lost, but they're basically finding its audience. And every story finds the right audience. And the second product I want to share with you, which I'm super excited about, is the world's first outcome-based brand lift product. So think about, in the industry, we've been working a long, long time with cost per action, cost per order, cost per visit, cost per views and reach. But what about brand marketers? What we typically do is like we measure the outcome of a campaign, host campaign, right? We measure we have a baseline. We basically say, okay, that's going to be the outcome. But what if there's a world where you can come and say, hey, can you guarantee brand lift? Can you predict brand lift? And this is the outcome-based product that we are delivering. So using the predictive models that we have created, we can now, for the first time on YouTube, predict the brand lift, brand awareness, purchase intent, all of those KPIs, and work with you together on the campaign. So you have more plannable resources, and it's more repeatable, plannable, and scalable. Now, too much talking about Precisify. I want you to learn more about the data and our beautiful research. And I'm handing over to Dennis, who will talk about our latest research on Gen Z Millennials with the wonderful Evan Shapiro.
Great. Thank you, Christian. That's good. Stay back. Thank you. Yeah, so here, actually, there's a booklet on each chair, which is this research. If you want to declutter, you can take a picture and take a PDF instead and have a digital version. So yes, we recently released this amazing research in partnership with Evan Shapiro. We looked at Gen Z and Millennials, and we looked at their consumption habits online. So this is just a sneak peek of the report. If you want the full report, you have it on your chair, or as well, download it using the QR code. Before I show you the research, I just wanted to talk about all of our products and our newer products as well that Christian talked about are built on panel data. If you think about AI and the boom of AI, it really depends on great data that you have to build great AI and outcomes from that AI. So what we have at Precisify is we have our first party panel data. So this is 30,000 plus participants. Gen A, Gen Z, Millennial. We're just about to start finance, luxury and entertainment. If any agencies and brands would like to input questions for these, please get in touch with someone from Precisify in the room. And this panel is in all these markets. And then on the right-hand side for you all, we actually have a consumer panel of 2 million individuals. And this is actually licensed data, but integrated and ingested with our data sources on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. So our influencer offering that we're going to talk a bit more about today includes both of these panels. The panel on the right includes shopping behavior data, website visitation data. So if you think about that, there's an opportunity with our data looking at people who buy products online. What influencers are they most concentrated around? So really back to purchase in this example. Okay, so with the research, we looked at from a top level perspective, which were the biggest platforms for teens and millennials. So you can see here on the left-hand side, YouTube is the largest for both cohorts, Netflix next, TikTok, YouTube Shorts as well as actually further down there as well. You can see what a juggernaut YouTube is in general. Interesting to see, I think that Disney Plus, very strong with teens, not as strong with millennials yet. And Spotify actually coming up here at the end as well. So we kind of dive into more of this data in the report as well if you download it. And then just looking at another data source outside of our report, Evan actually recently partnered with Barb, where they looked at 4 screens instead of just one screen. So he looked at TV, laptop, mobile, and iPad. Yeah, sorry, not iPad. Actually, that's like saying Hoover for vacuums. It's actually tablets. So tablets as well. So you can see here on the right-hand side, 16 to 34, 27.5% reach for YouTube, like almost double Netflix. That is almost triple the BBC in this example. So it is absolutely massive. And now new measurement techniques of measuring this reach is possible. And that's what we've really leaned into to buy effectively across these platforms. And why does it matter? Not only is the audience massive there, but we also noticed that ad recall is largest on YouTube. One thing that I thought was interesting from this research around TikTok and YouTube Shorts, that you can see for millennials, it's not as impactful. But I think one big thing that we're seeing with vertical video is the ad creatives are improving dramatically over time as people lean into influencers, UGC content, which we're going to talk about more today. So I think you'll probably see in a year's time that improve as well for older audiences and not just younger. And then, the second last insight I'm going to show here, which we thought was surprising, was while these audiences are watching TV, and watching TV is anything on that big device. So it could be CTV, it could be Amazon Prime, it could be Netflix, Disney, but they're also consuming 50% are second screening YouTube, or 43% of teens are second screening. So YouTube's even winning on the second screen in these examples, which is phenomenal. I think Evan said about YouTube, it's like from couch to toilet, that you bring it from the couch to the toilet, that you're consuming it everywhere. Which is a nice quote. And then, finally, just looking at influencers and content creators. We asked the question in this panel, where do you like to watch videos your favorite creators make? And YouTube again, even though YouTube hasn't had the biggest amount of ad dollars for maybe influencer integrations, because a lot of it is longer form video where it's like harder to integrate the brand fully, but it is in terms of reach and consumption. So reach is nothing without attention, or I think is what you said earlier, Christian, to this point as well, that really YouTube, there's a big opportunity with this. So finally, before I hand over to Izzy from YouTube, these were kind of the three main takeaways from the research, and look at it in your own time afterwards. But YouTube is massive from a cross-generational attention and engagement. Teens and millennials choose YouTube number one for influencer. And then finally, there's quite a bit of a section in the report around search behavior and purchase behavior. And there's actually a section in there around AI and consumption of the largest chatbots for these audiences as well, which is very interesting.
So we are now going to go straight into a panel hosted by me. And again, thank you, Izzy, for the intro. But for those of you that don't know me, I head up influencer at Precisify. My name's Mark. And we have some amazing guests. So first up, we have Claire Phillips from Adobe. Please come right there. Then we have John Saffer from Connect Management. And then lastly, we have Scott Guthrie from the IMTB. And just a very quick intro for, should I flick on slide or should I leave it on this one? Leave it on. Quick, I feel like I'm really far away. I think I'm going to move over. So just like a little bit of a kind of an overview of all these lovely people. And thank you very much for coming today. So Claire has done some amazing work with creators over the years, a huge kind of roster of experience, and now works at Adobe heading up some of their influencer work, and has got an amazing amount to say about events and things that she's running and interesting ways that she's working with creators. Josh heads up talent at Connect Management, and they represent some of the world's, in fact, he would probably say all the world's best talent, UK talent. So it represents over 100 talent, and that's growing fast, and some truly awesome people you should check out. And then Scott from the IMTB. The IMTB, for those of you that don't know, is the influencer marketing trade body. And Scott is really, we've known each other for years, is really helping to bring rigor and bring kind of industry standards to our space. And for those of you that don't know, for a long time, the influencer space was the Wild West. And so Scott is really helping us do that. And we are proud IMTB members. I have a list of questions here, which might be awkward to hold and hold the microphone. But so first up, I'd love to kind of kick things off with what's one thing you think brands misunderstand about YouTube? Should we start that off? Josh or Claire?
Who's going first?
Can you go first?
I'll kick things off. I think for me, I've had a lot of experience working with so many different YouTube creators. I think brands misunderstand the scale at which YouTube creators are functioning. A lot of the bigger creators and the creators that are working at the very highest level aren't just one or two people behind a camera or behind a screen filming and editing content. They're essentially media companies. They are teams of people that have producers and videographers and camera crews and people that do lighting and producers and editors and everything. This is something that I've had the amazing experience of being a part of and helping a YouTube creator, a guy called Brandon B, grow his own production studio. He's now got a team of 55 people. And this is something that we really want brands to understand when partnering with them. Luckily, Adobe are one of our amazing partners, and they're really on board with this idea that Brandon's more than just a name on a screen. Every single video that he posts has so much knowledge, understanding, work, and time that goes into it in order to bring an idea to life. So I think that's something that brands need to really sort of start to understand is the real scale of how YouTube creators are working today.
I would say long form, actually. I think for a long time we were all obsessed with short form content, and I think what YouTube has proven is that long form is a format that people really enjoy. And I think when we look at the amount of time people now spend on long form on YouTube, we're shifting, and you've seen it in Dennis's slides, but we're shifting people from traditional TV to watching longer form content on YouTube. And I think that, along with video and video podcasts, is a real opportunity for brands.
Nice. And do you think brands have struggled because they just don't know how to kind of fit into that long form story? Or
Yeah, I do. I think sometimes we don't think about it. I think sometimes we're thinking about commissioning creators to create short form content. And actually, some of the work that I did previously has been really effective when we built it into longer form pieces on YouTube. So it wasn't necessarily the whole story, but it was integrated into the story. And you get a lot of people who are watching that content and really involved in that content and deeply engaged in that content. And then your brand message kind of features quite naturally as part of that story. And I think that can be really quite effective.
yeah, we always talk about, or I like to talk about, like empowering the creator to make kind of great content. So as you think about the content that you're working with them on, you're thinking about how to do something that's fun and interesting that their audience are going to love, versus like making kind of an ad. But Scott, you look like you're going to say add something.
I hope so. Well, one of the gifts, also the fallbacks of being the third, is that the other panelists have kind of nailed a lot of what I wanted to say. But production, how creators are no longer one-man bands or hobbyists; they are powerhouses and owners of production houses. And I think Claire's point about the long form was important. Your point about brands needing to loosen control to create content that the audience wants to see. It's as obvious as that. So, finding the most appropriate creator to work with, setting out clear rules about what to say, what can't, guardrails, but they're letting the creator create. And I think we're moving rapidly away from one-man bands, hobbyists, into really powerhouse that are rivaling the traditional television or linear television offerings as entertainment houses.
Yeah. Josh, how do you feel about that when you're trying to make as many brand deals as you possibly can? How do you feel about that? Like, how does that sit with you? Do you prefer shorter brand deals, like shorts? You're going to turn them around quicker, or do you prefer doing longer form content?
I do think some brands are very scared to take risks, particularly with longer form YouTube creators. I feel like the easy way out is to partner with a creator on a short form piece of content that's very quick turnaround, that you can go and boost that content and just guarantee that you're going to hit whatever KPIs or whatever you're looking to achieve. I think more brands have to take risks specifically with long form YouTube content. This is something that we're working a lot on with a lot of our brand partners in two different ways, both on the creator side, but also the brand side. From a creator point of view, we are working directly with creators who might not have long form YouTube channels and are primarily sort of have a really, really strong and dedicated hardcore audience on their short form channels, and helping them build out long form YouTube formats that are in partnership with brands. So I'll give you an example. We're working with a creator called Grime Gran. We've just launched a new YouTube series for her in partnership with Thai Food Tea, which is called Tea with Nan. It's essentially a kind of spin on Amelia's sort of chicken shop date style. It's a face-to-face interview with Grime Gran. She's like an 87-year-old granny, and she's interviewing the likes of Ryan and Clark or James Buckley, who obviously played Jay from The In-Betweeners. I think that's a really good risk that Typhoo Tea have seen a massive return on, because they've invested in a creator who is yet to even tap into that YouTube long form audience, and have kind of like become a part of this experience and this IP that's now out there for the world to see. And then from a brand side, we're working directly with the Google and YouTube teams to start to build out long form YouTube formats on the brand's channels. So we're working with O2 at the moment. We've just launched a series called AAA, which is all funded and produced. Well, we're producing it, but funded by the O2 team. They own the IP, and it sits on their channels. They wanted to lean into like fan culture and fandom around upcoming shows. So we've created a format that's creator-led, that kind of leans into that, whilst also building something that they own. They own that IP, and they're able to share basically whatever they want, whether that's short form content over their other channels or boost that long form content out to a wider audience.
Nice. And Claire, I know we've had conversations before about Adobe and how you fit into the kind of ecosystem of people making content. Like, when from your side, how do you visualize kind of creators as part of what Josh was saying? Like, how do you visualize their use when it comes to Adobe?
Yeah, so Adobe has been creating tools for creative professionals for 40 years. So it's kind of, historically, it started off in kind of design and illustration and video. And creators are a relatively new audience for us. But I think, as Scott and Josh have talked about, creators are becoming kind of mini studios and mini businesses. And the professionalization of that content means that they need to kind of have pro-level tools. So what Adobe brings to creators is an ability to kind of up-level their content. And I think when content is now so democratized and it's now relatively easy to make, how do you stand out against everything else that's on there? I think one of the ways you can stand out is by having a level of craft that you can't necessarily get with some of the kind of inbuilt tools in some of these platforms. So for us, it's about seeking out those creators, those next generation of creators who see themselves as being really ambitious and wanting to create really crafted content that breaks through and stands out. And to those, bigger, more established creators who have a huge production team behind them, like Brandon, for example, who's a big user of our products.
Yeah. Scott, anything to add from kind of your perspective on, because I know actually, interestingly, the IMTB Connect is also a member. And so from an industry point of view, you're representing not just kind of agencies, but you're also representing kind of talent as well.
Yeah. Here we are. So both sides of the coin. Traditionally, we first started that with representing agencies. Now we're leaning more into or embracing talent agencies as well. Connect Management as one of our first members. We're growing that roster. I think. Back to your. Do you want to refine your question, or are we going to move on?
No. For me, it was more just. I think what we've heard is that the world of creators has moved on. There's now creators themselves are running kind of huge businesses. They're represented by talent management. We have then agencies that are, building strategy and things. And I think from a kind of, I guess from your side, what are the trends that you're seeing, or the trends that people should be aware of in the room when you think about the industry as a...
So it's more of a maturation, I suppose, quick question. If I was trying to push it back to you unfairly, Mark, but I think this is what we're doing in the Influencer Marketing Trade Body. We're working with big brands, big agencies, working with creators. The future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed, to coin that phrase from William Gibson. So in terms of more money that's coming in, we saw earlier slides of the speed at which creator marketing is growing compared with other categories. I have it that we're growing at 36% year on year, while there's other advertising as a whole is growing at 6%. In the UK, grow at 6.4%. So that's happy days, more money coming in, but we need to protect. We need to measure that accurately, so that we can, demonstrate return on investment. So that means standardization of return on investment moving away from vanity metrics towards intent, impact metrics, moving away from just campaign performance to corporate and commercial performance. So we're our members are moving along that and standardizing, professionalizing that. The biggest loser of trust, the biggest diminisher of trust within influencer marketing is when ads don't declare themselves as ads. It's that hidden advertising. But that's just one tip. Our members have been doing, I know that, and we are members of the Committee of Advertising Practice, the sister arm of the Advertising Standards Authority. First new members in a decade representing influencer marketing. So our members get that bit, we understand that, and including that is part of the onboarding process. But it's more the totality of what does brand safety look like today. And so that's, it is leading into looking at creators and vetting their past content, predicting their future content, looking at what they might have said about competitors in the past. Lots of things rather than have they just put hashtag ad. So I've talked a lot about, but the point I'm trying to say is, that a lot of influencer marketing remains kind of a two-speed industry. There are lots of people at the front, progressive agencies, and like Precisify, members of the IMTB, which are leading the charge. But there is a long tail, and we need to get the long tail up so we can standardize procedures and around measurement and evaluation specifically.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, the just like you said, the industry is growing up quickly, I feel like. And when you're in it, it feels like it's quite slow. But actually, as you look kind of from the outside, it's growing like really quickly. And actually, just to put things in perspective, Josh, you were saying earlier that, I think when we picture influencer deals, we picture, okay, influencers might get 1 or 2 deals a month every so often. Actually, Josh is doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals as an agency a month. And so it's not, it's not small things that are happening randomly. You aren't just the first brand to offer them something that they must take you up on. There's a huge industry here that's happening. But just moving on kind of slightly, Claire, just from a kind of brand perspective, how do you decide when YouTube creators are the right answer for you rather than investing your money elsewhere?
I mean, we've got a project on at the moment, and this conversation has kind of come up. And actually, the media team has said we want to, the way we're going to achieve our objectives is by getting creators to communicate our message for us. And the reason for that is probably 3 or 4-fold. So trust is really important. So I think when trust is as important as reach, then creators are really valuable. Explanation is really helpful. If you've got a product that's quite tricky, quite complicated, some of the Adobe tools and products are quite tricky to understand. So the advantage of using creators is you've got a bit more time than a 15-second or a 30-second ad to get your message across. Being part of culture, that can be, for some brands, that's super important, and creators are a way of getting access to culture. And I think the last piece would be about audience. So depending on who you're trying to target, you'll find some of your audiences are spending so much of their time on platforms like YouTube or Instagram that you need to be where they are, and therefore working with creators is the kind of most sensible option.
I from my side, like I always think about creators are the ones who are driving culture. They're the ones who are driving the stories on these platforms or on YouTube, and they're the ones who you can use to communicate your message to an audience. And like how when you've decided that kind of creators are the way you want to.
Yes.
How are you kind of briefing Josh or your agents?
I think there's a real, it's probably like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears or something. It's just, there's a trick to briefing, I think, where you can overbrief and you can underbrief. And it's like, how do you get it just right? And I think the overbriefing is when you've just got too many kind of demands and kind of dogmas in there. And I think underbriefing is where it's like, hey, we'll just leave it, the creative can kind of work it out. And I think there's a real skill. And I do think that advertising agent. I mean, I was lucky to start off as a planner in an ad agency, and I spent the first 10 years of my career learning how to write creative briefs. And I think that's a skill that's been incredibly helpful, because you can distill your objectives and your task into a one-page document, and that is what you hand to a creator to then develop their content with. But that ability to synthesize information and to create something that's really tight is super important in order for the creative to then be kind of let loose and run free and, let their imagination run wild. So for me, I think one of the biggest ways to get effective creative content is the input. So it's the briefing, which is critical.
Yeah, nice. And Josh, anything that you see that you don't love or you don't like, or that when you get those briefs, like what are the kind of top tips for people?
I think just sort of coming off of your point, I think after speaking to loads of different creators like to be briefed differently. Some creators really enjoy the fact that they can just be given sort of a rough guideline of what are the goals, what are the objectives. These are the this is where the line is that you can't cross, and then kind of lean into what they know best, what they know their audience reacts well to, and kind of take control of the creative. One thing I've noticed more recently is that there are a lot of creators that actually prefer quite a heavy briefing just so they know exactly what's required. And what that does is avoids multiple rounds of feedback. It avoids campaigns being dragged out over a longer period of time. They can just go straight to the point and kind of be very direct in their approach and get that content turned around and live quite quickly. So I think it actually does depend on the creator. Like someone like Brandon, who we do a lot of work with Adobe already, it's very difficult to give him like a very heavy briefing because the content is so creative and he's got such a diverse range of different content styles and different stories that he can tell. So giving someone like Brandon a very strong brief is just not going to work, and the content is not going to perform. But on the flip side, there are specific creators, maybe take a family creator, for example, who might be dealing with their kids and having loads to do day to day. Like they often very much prefer, like they just want to know what they need to get done. And then they'll apply whatever formats or whatever styles of content they know works best to that brief.
Nice. And Scott, in terms of your members, like what are the kind of common challenges that you hear or things that you sort of hear when it comes to briefing talent that you hear as like an industry expert?
Well, the two things that just to pick up on, that it sort of pushes into the power of the long-term relationship, wasn't it? That you can be over-briefed, but if you've gone to the time and often expense of using third-party tools to identify, select, vet, find the right creator, onboarding them, why would you not want to then work with them again and again and again? So it might be an onboarding session might be long the first time, you get shorter each time after that, and then you can let those guardrails, both sides kind of relax a little bit more because they know what is expected of them. But I think you do those guardrails up front. There's something that Josh at Connect Management does. It's such an obvious thing once it's said, but your briefs are vertical, aren't they, to be read? It's such a, and they're no longer on PDF, is that right? I don't want to steal your story.
Yeah, through our agency, we do our briefs. Just everyone reads a brief on a phone, so why are you holding your phone landscape to read a brief? Like, surely your brief should just be the same way we'd scroll on social platforms.
Such an obvious thing, but it's only obvious when you're dealing with creators day in, day out, day in, day out. So
that is really smart, to be fair.
It's so simple though, and like I think one of the team posted it on LinkedIn, and it got like a couple hundred likes of people being like, "This is genius," and like, "Oh, it makes so much sense."
Well, oh, go on.
No, I was just going to say creators read briefs very quickly, and if you can have a single one pager on their phone that kind of fits that screen perfectly, they're going to be more inclined to read it and sort of digest it properly.
Yeah, that is definitely an idea that we're going to steal. That's a genius idea. But actually, just in terms of like the ongoing partnerships piece, like how long should a partnership be? Like, should brands be approaching people and looking at signing up for 6 months or 3 months, and then how do you quantify that against the value, and what happens if that relationship doesn't kind of work out? Maybe who would like to take that? Maybe.
Well, we've got I think it's kind of, it depends, I suppose, is the answer. So we have a group of creators who we work with called the Adobe Insiders. And what I love about that group is they're effectively an in-house production studio for us. So that's a long-term relationship. It's not transactional. We invest a lot into getting to know that creator and their work, and they're really quite, we spend a lot of time in making sure we've got the right people who are part of that crew. And what I love about it is it becomes this freelance studio essentially for us, rather than bringing all of that creative kind of firepower in-house. We can have that's associated with us, but kind of, not directly in-house, but working alongside us.
Super smart. I think for you, especially where you've got the tools, like it makes sense. Like they're the ones who are using the tools. They can show them off in the best way, and you can build that like ongoing story with them, iterating the content that they're making. And with Brandon, that's essentially the kind of relationship that you have with Adobe as well.
Yeah, 100%. I just think building with your point, I think you need a blend of both. You need a handful of sort of longer term ambassadors who you've worked with over a longer period of time, who the brands are having like regular meetings with and really sort of understanding what they can lean into specifically with those creators on their channels. But then also you still need a strategy that is a bit more reactive and present to whatever's going on. For example, we've got the World Cup coming up. There are a lot of brands that might have ambassadorships. Let's take Lego, for example. They'll have a load of like ambassadors, but then they've got this World Cup campaign running for the World Cup Lego sets where they're using a lot of football creators. Those football creators aren't ambassadors, but they're great for these one-off moments where you need to tap into maybe a slightly different audience that isn't your regular Lego user or isn't your regular Adobe user.
Nice. And just kind of tapping into if again, Scott, from your perspective, like what is the right data that people should be using when it comes to choosing the creators that they work with, and how do you view that from a kind of an industry level?
Yeah, it's a great question, but it would probably take the rest of the day to kind of to get into it. I mean, it depends on the ask, depends on the budget, depends, where you're trying to move that needle from sort of top of the funnel and building brand equity to the pointy end of the sales funnel in terms of getting more sales or activation. So there is no one. I think that the key takeaway, there's no one, sadly, silver bullet. It depends on what your goal is, what your budget is, and where you're trying to play within that sales funnel. Really important that we move away from the vanity metrics to incorporate the intent metrics and then the outcome metrics though. So it's looking that way. And so it might be, I think Dennis talked about brand sentiment uplift studies, for example. That's important, but that wouldn't be right if you're measuring sales. So it is understanding what the objectives is, and then from that working out what KPIs to work with.
And the days of the industry not understanding that, I think, have completely changed. Like I think the briefs that we're responding to and the briefs that we're getting, people understand how creators can be used in different ways and a different part of the funnel, and completely different strategies as well for that. So.
Yes, and earlier answer I said, the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Lots of brands completely get it. Lots of agencies completely get it. There are still a lot that don't either. And I was surprised on a call last week when we're looking into standardizing measurement and evaluation throughout the industry. There are some significant brands on the call that were still maybe a little bit behind the curve on what to measure and how to measure it.
Sure. Well, and actually, in terms of that, like I still speak to brands all the time that only think about creators from like an organic perspective. They don't think about the kind of paid element. And as you were saying earlier, like you can spend days, hours finding the right creators with the right audiences, the right kind of stats. Then you can brief them in, do a really good job. It's in vertical, so they understand it. But actually, sometimes that content, you don't want to just gamble on that content going out there. You want to ensure it's seen by the right people and it's seen by the right audience, and paid, from kind of my perspective, is crucial to all of that work. What are you doing time-wise, everyone? 10 minutes, okay. Yeah, here we go. Here's a good question for you. As we think about the event today being really focused on mastering kind of YouTube, really focused on kind of mastering creators, we've heard a little bit around, okay, we need to have the right type of brief, we need to find the right type of creator. But any other kind of top tips that you would give out as you think about kind of your own individual areas in this space?
I mean, I think finding the right creators is an interesting question, actually, because I think we can get too rational sometimes. So, I mean, this is a kind of competitor to Adobe, but the Gemma Collins piece, which they've done recently for Canva, I think is really interesting because they've taken a concept of diva and applied it to Gemma Collins. They haven't gone, who's the typical person who's going to be using Canva, and let's have them as a talking head in a piece of content. So I think that I think we can get super rational, and we have all the data, and we can kind of work out, we think we've got the perfect person to communicate this product. But I think often if we think more laterally and in a campaign and an idea first, I think we could get to some potentially more interesting and breakthrough.
I feel like Josh has got a perspective on this. We've spoken about this before. I was going to speak more on just the talent perspective and the experiences that I've personally had working with talent on YouTube. I think creators that have cracked YouTube truly have mastered it. YouTube is not an easy platform to crack. It's definitely the hardest. It doesn't work the same sort of way that TikTok and Instagram used to, where a lot of creators would post a video and overnight they've got millions of followers, and all of a sudden they've got this audience that they kind of are able to turn content around daily and build things from there. YouTube doesn't work like that. Whenever we sit down in strategy meetings with creators, we say to them, what do you want to achieve? What's coming up this year? And genuinely, majority of them are saying, I want to crack YouTube. I need to build an audience on YouTube. And that's where we have to come in and really help them do that. But it's not an easy process. It requires a lot more time, a lot more money, and a lot more skill than any of the other platforms. So I think when working with creators on YouTube, you know that they've truly mastered this. They've got something, whether that's a full production team or an amazing creative idea, they've got it right. If they've got an audience that are consistently coming back to them, they've sort of found that winning formula. Whereas there are so many, also YouTube has way more longevity. Creators can build businesses and build something that feels more sustainable and long-term for the future than just content fatigue on the other platforms, because you're turning content around so quickly with so much less thought. So for me, that's mastering YouTube.
Nice. Scott?
I was just thinking, just before we came on, we were talking around about this subject, and in case it's an obvious point, but going back to who are you trying to influence and what do you want them to do? And we were talking about Gran, and I think being an ambassador for what was it for? The clothes for Burberry. Not the most obvious of collaboration.
Adobe is even a more, you would put Gran together.
And that's why it works as well. So you can, if you're sort of a CFO and just looking at data, you might say, well, this does not compute. But it is about the values and beliefs and worldviews and that engagement, that sort of audience proximity that Gran brings, that makes it work.
It's surprising
and relatable and surprising that bit. Why would Gemma Collins be doing Canva? Why would Gran be doing Adobe or Burberry? So that works.
And the conversation that Gran wouldn't know how to use any Adobe tools. She had the biggest queue of anyone else at Adobe Live for her activation. So you clearly found the right sort of formula with something that was very different to what you typically do.
Yeah.
That evidently worked.
Yeah.
I think we spoke a bit about this before. There there isn't such a thing as the perfect creator, but there is people that fit the moment, fit the story, fit the kind of conversation that you're trying to drive. And I think from our perspective, it's about marrying them with some kind of signals that highlight, okay, does this creator have an affinity to Adobe, or does this creator's audience have an affinity to Burberry or whatever it might be, so that there is a reason to kind of work with them. And then it's about working with the brand really closely and with the talent really closely to come up with that kind of fun melding of worlds. Okay. Well, I think we are probably at time here. So actually, any questions from the audience? Do we have time for that? Any questions from anyone in the audience? Here we go, Murray.
Silly question. I'm interested. I've heard a lot about shorts, attention spans, second screening. There's a lot going on, and then also this concept of power of long form. Are they equal bedfellows, or do they work just to different audiences, slightly older audiences? Watch long form, youngsters still on short form?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Izzy would know better than I would, but I mean, I would have thought I've got youngish kids, and they'll spend 2 hours watching podcasts. So in fact, most of my children actually will spend more time watching long form than maybe I would. I'd probably spend more time scrolling Instagram than they're spending watching long form on YouTube. So I'm not too sure about the generations. And I think it's one of those things where you kind of need both. It's that classic thing where you want the kind of the reach and the that you get by being on multiple platforms, and the reach that you can get from short form content. But then you also want that kind of depth of engagement that you get with more longer form. So it's that kind of, it's that happy balance again, isn't it? I think, which is that works really well. Plus, it's just so much more fun, isn't it? When you're thinking about how do you create ideas that exist in these different time frames. I just think that's kind of interesting from a creative perspective. It gives you more opportunities and avenues to go down. I'm sure as a creator that's kind of quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think the two work hand in hand. I think a good piece of long form content will have viral moments and great clips that will be cut down and posted on shorts, and very often that short or that short form piece of content might get significantly more views than that single long piece of content. But what it will also do is divert viewers over to that long form content to go and watch that full piece. And it's something we do a lot with our brand partners when we're working on YouTube formats. The O2 one I mentioned before, the sort of main long form asset sits on their main channel, and then we have hundreds of short form cut downs that go on shorts. Those short assets are boosted, and then what that's doing is diverting viewers over to that long form piece of content.
Great. Any other questions? Anyone? No? Okay. Well, look, thank you very much to our panel. I think we've learned, hopefully everyone's learned a lot of interesting things about YouTube and about how important YouTube is as your kind of mix. And certainly when you think about creators, how powerful it can be. And actually the industry as a whole, how it is, it is very much actually growing up. There are huge amounts of opportunity there to work with creators, and you can get amazing results as you can see. But thank you very much to Claire, Josh, and Scott.
Thank you, Mark. So as a tradition, before we go into the coffee break, we do a selfie with all the panelists and the audience in the background, like the Academy Awards. So if you're not supposed to be here, hide under the chair, run for the hills.
Biggest smiles, everyone.
Quick break, and we're gonna see you for a very amazing panel, which is up next.
So final section of today is a panel for the next 25-30 minutes. I will ask the audience if you have questions as well near the end of the panel, so think about your question. And we're talking today about mastering YouTube. So I have two absolute experts here in Greg Weller and Ashley Bolt as well. Both of them have a lot of experience in the gaming industry, which I think the gaming industry is fair to say, like some of the most sophisticated agencies and advertisers in that sector, because some of those audiences were the first to kind of move to YouTube. I think, Ashley, when we were catching up, I think you said the average age of the gaming sector now is 33 or 34?
34, yeah.
34, and it's aged up 2 years in 1 year.
Yeah.
Was the stat.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear lots more interesting things like that on this panel. So yeah, first of all, it'd be great if Greg, maybe starting with yourself, just to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, my name is Greg Weller. I'm the head of scaling partnerships at Generation Media. Prior to kind of moving agency side, I spent my first 20 years of my career publishing side in the entertainment space. So working on at Rockstar Games on the likes of the GTA franchise, Red Dead, Bethesda Softworks on Skyrim and Doom franchise, and at Team 17 on franchises like Worms and Overcooked. So I kind of take a lot of that kind of publisher side perspective and experience, and I brought that with me agency side to kind of, look at how we can, use the best of the skill sets that we have at Generation Media and really build on that kind of insight and audience reach through great platforms like YouTube and with partners like Precisify.
Yeah, I'm Ashley. I head up Arena Gaming. So we have clients, of which Greg's all listed. So we look after all of the gaming clients. So that's one part of my role. The other part is helping non-gaming clients get into the world of gaming as well.
Great. So to kick things off, how does YouTube fit into your marketing mix today, especially for Gen Z and Millennials that we were talking about? Greg?
I mean, for games in particular, I think it's often always been the kind of that last mile before intent. So for certain massive key beats, whether it's a big announcement trailer or your launch trailer or accolades, it's really kind of important for that kind of get that kind of intent to purchase, intent to wish list, intent to kind of rally behind and share with your networks. The kind of depth of engagement versus kind of passive scroll platforms is also, I think, really important for YouTube, and one that we have, fits quite prominently into kind of the way we approach the marketing, particularly with Gen Zs. And for us, we kind of use it across the funnel, as obviously everyone will do. But for the upper part, it's for those kind of cultural moments where you might use more kind of like skippable, non-skippables, and then for the mid to lower, using kind of more short sequential messaging. And for kind of maybe creator integrations as well.
Yeah, it's one of those quite unique channels that helps across all elements of the funnel, really, because it can help from discovery. So, a gamer might subscribe to Skill Up's weekly news video where that gamer might hear rumors about a game. They then might subscribe to IGN, where they'll get the official announcement. They might get the studio drop. Then they'll see a review of that game there as well, which will help on their purchase decision. And then once they have or not purchased that game, they come back and look at walkthroughs and look at patch notes and any updates, etc. So it tracks that whole journey from a gamer perspective. It can really sort of tap into every element there. So yeah, it's important for us. We use it a lot. And I think that there is definitely ways in which you can tailor YouTube. So whether it's the short form or the long form, you can definitely get quite a lot of impact on that for games.
Yeah, I think for these generations in particular, it's YouTube is essentially their TV. It's kind of the default area that when this TV goes on, YouTube's basically the first kind of platform that they open. They don't go flicking through the channels to see what's on. It's straight to YouTube. Have my kind of have the content creators I follow uploaded a new video. Is there some kind of associated content that's attached to some of the videos I've watched from kind of creators that have dove deeper into something? To Ash's point, if you've watched a
a content creator who's reviewing the game, you'll then kind of maybe see through the algorithm, playthroughs, deeper dives into it, lore videos, franchise videos, and you can spend, before you know it, your afternoon after crashing in after coming home from work or school has been kind of filled for you by kind of content that is relevant and interesting. So it's very much, the search engine and the kind of TV for this generation that it was what that normal television was for us.
Yeah. On that TV point, have you seen any clients have like a specific strategy for TV versus the other devices, or is it got to that level of sophistication?
Yeah, I think the more successful brands definitely tailor advertising between the two channels. What's interesting and a challenge is that YouTube is increasingly, certainly for gamers, being watched on the TV.
Yes.
And suddenly you've got this sort of mobile skip ad type mentality on your big screen. So you've got the you're out and about, you're watching videos or whatever on the commute. Suddenly you've got to work out how that also works in a lean back environment of I'm sitting here on my sofa watching YouTube, and therefore probably a little bit more open to A, long form content, and B, content that you probably weren't necessarily looking for as well. So a bit more open to different ideas because of that mindset and that environment, which is weird thing to adapt from that sort of space.
And YouTube is reacting to that, as well for those habits, with the introduction of like pause ads, So I mean, like when I'm treating my TV, like YouTube, like a TV channel, and I go to the toilet, pause it, come back, there's an advert there watching me, or I'm watching it, watch me, watch it. And
how did you get there?
Yeah. And that's not something that you would be more open to, or would work in a kind of commute setting where you're kind of watching on your smaller screen. You're less likely to pause. You're more likely to be probably listening to it in your pocket, maybe to a kind of podcast that's on YouTube. So that it's very kind of those kind of tailoring to the kind of mindsets and behaviors of the audience are certainly kind of evolving, and there's more opportunities for our partners to maximize in the right setting.
I guess one thing about like in the UK, the sidemen are absolutely massive, and they all started kind of as gamers with gaming clients, and their how they started working with some of these influencers initially, like getting them to Gamescom and giving them games and stuff. How has that kind of matured over the last 10 years or so, have you seen for like gaming clients?
As an agency, you always want to sort of try and make some more money, but trying to sort of own and manage some of that influencer content would be great. But in all honesty, most of our clients have direct relationships with those content creators because they're so valuable, because of their reach, because of their influence. And so I totally get why they would have proper one-to-one relationships, contracts in place, etc. It's something that they've known for a long time, the importance of these content creators and influencers, and they manage that themselves at great expense.
Yeah, no, I can remember when, influencers, the word influencer didn't even exist, and not even content creator. It was just kind of fans kind of creating videos about brands and products that they felt passionate about. And I can even remember, bumping into KSI at Eurogamer Expo when he got kicked out for being a bit abrasive to other members in the crowds.
I was like 14, 15.
Yeah, exactly. And then, from my time in the industry, it was fascinating to kind of watch the popularity of these videos go, because it was very different type of content than we felt should be, that we would ever see ourselves putting out there. Everything was more, controlled. The kind of creative would always go through a very rigorous process. And then suddenly this guy screaming into a microphone, PewDiePie over horror movies, you've been like, this is awful. Why is anyone watching this? And then you watch the millions of views count up. And then over time, you slowly start to get, right, okay, I'm not the intended audience for this, which is why I'm not getting it. But now I have to start kind of factoring it in as to how this could be seen as valuable. And then you start the outreach. You start going, well, if this person's really popular for this type of game, what type of
people are out there making videos about our type of games, and then the process of analyzing, finding, searching, making contact with them, to your point, that one-on-one relationship. And it was great because, they would just be happy to get an email from a Rockstar Games or a Bethesda. They'd be delighted, and they'd be, shouting about it in their videos, and they would make more videos, and the sentiment was really positive. And it was great, it was just the cost of a t-shirt and a first-class stamp. But obviously, as things matured, people could see the money coming into that space. Management companies, talent management companies start coming in and go, hang on, well, you need to have a chat with us first, because, this guy, you've only sent him a t-shirt and he's just generated you X amount of views, probably earned you the X amount of dollars. We want a bit slice of that pie. And then obviously that has meant, that you're like, okay, well, now we have to start factoring this into our budgets and our media mix and our strategy. So where we're at nowadays, I think it's interesting because, yes, I think for lots of the kind of really big content creators, and maybe some of the middle ones where they're people that just play those games, there is that direct relationship. But because of that cost barrier, I think lots of publishers and publishers and partners will go, we don't know if we can afford the amount of money that these guys are asking us to kind of create content. So either we can't do that, or we need to find a different solution. And what we can do is kind of help identify more of those kind of micro level influencers that are slightly off the radar, to kind of and act as an intermediate to kind of help connect the dots, because there's just so many content creators, there's so many videos, and to kind of trawl through the platforms yourself whilst you're making games and whilst you're playing with other things can be quite difficult.
Yeah. Do you think the other industries will follow the gaming industry in that regard, where it'll become more like this influencer marketing, like in apparel, in finance and stuff, or you think gaming is quite unique?
No, I was going to say, I mean, you've already kind of got that in the finance world, all the fintech bros and all the podcasts and stuff that's created. I think where there's money and attention, there's opportunity, and people will feel that.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people are already doing it. A lot of fashion brands have been doing that for years, using models and what have you. So yeah, I think it's just something that's growing, and the importance of it, certainly for Gen Z, who put even more emphasis on content creators and influencers, more so than previous generations, I would guess. So yeah, they're just going to keep becoming more and more important.
Right. Okay. And I guess like the sea of content that's out there on YouTube, the brands that you work for, are a lot of them like actually wanting to appear around certain types of videos or creators, or are they just like audiences number one? How do you feel that is for your clients?
Yeah, it's a challenge with YouTube, because its scale is both its strength but also its challenge, because there is a lot of shit on YouTube, but there is also a lot of great stuff. And audience first is the agency mantra. So, you follow the audience, but having the right contextual environment is also important. And what we do to try and sort of narrow that down, or to make sure that we've got relevant scale, we operate very much on a sort of a proximity, affinity and propensity model. So, and we use a lot of data signals from third party, second parties, first party data, all of that sort of stuff, to identify our core audience and what else they might be interested in, and looking at those adjacent interests to build those connections. So yes, we want to be around gaming content to hit that sort of proximity audience, but we want those adjacent interests to reach that affinity audience, because that is growth, that's expansion, that's bringing new people into the ecosystem of gaming. And if you don't know, there's a lot of money being spent on developing games, and therefore they have to sell ever increasing amount of games to make profit. So, going after a hardcore gaming niche is not going to drive the success that they want. So they want that sort of adjacent and affinity audience that they can bring in.
Yeah, I mean, data is your friend. Whatever data you own, whatever data you can utilize with kind of key and relevant partners to kind of help with the right kind of targeting for your audience. As you said, I think audience first is the way to go. And I think one thing that's really critical as well is that mindset that there is no gaming audience anymore. Gaming is culture. It's no different to asking someone, so you're into sports? Yeah, I'm into sports. Cool. Do you want to play some sports? It's like, no, it's what type of sport is it? What type of, is it football, golf, paddle, pickleball, and then from that, what type of fashion's attached to it? What kind of, leagues are you interested in? So kind of the men's sport, the mixed, the women's. So, and it's no different in the game space. One of the biggest games of last year is a game called Balatro, and that was, a rogue-like deck building poker game, and these are now kind of genres that are, people latch onto in the development space, and you've got boomer shooters, you've got roguelites, you've got all the battle royals is these are all kind of genres that weren't on people's bingo cards a few years ago, and just like with the music industry, genres bleed new genres. So being able to kind of understand first and foremost the type of person that might be playing that, and what other things they're interested in. I as someone that kind of plays a lot of these games, I'm also interested in home renovation, and dog training, how to be better organized with my time, and so I'm watching content across all of those things. So if a video that's relevant to a game or genre that I'm interested in is popping up there, it still feels natural to me. So that's important in terms of what we're both saying, I think, in terms of really kind of understanding that kind of person you're trying to reach. So having that data that you've got, or with partners out there that can help you kind of bolster that is really critical. It's not just a spray and pray type approach that would have kind of done the world of good 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Great. Can you share an example with the audience, kind of being more practical around, like, an example you've seen where a brand's done a really good job in an activation on YouTube, and some results you've seen that were compelling?
Wow. Do say so myself. One of our campaigns did really, really well on YouTube. It was for a big AAA game, and it was a legacy game that had a whole bunch of lapsed players and a bunch of new players that it wants to attract. And the way that we approach that is creating different content for the different audiences, trying to make it as bespoke as possible, to make sure that it's as relevant as possible, and making sure that those ads sat around that adjacent content that was most relevant to them. So when we're looking at lapsed gamers, we're looking at more your Gen Y and your Gen X. So we look at the adjacent interests, and funnily enough, it's home interests, because they've just bought a house and they want to know how to change a tap without flooding the whole thing. There's a lot more intent from Millennial and Gen X going on YouTube, so we make sure that we're around that sort of content. We dialed into the nostalgia, top 10 lists, retro games, that sort of thing. Whereas the new audience are there for discovery a bit more. They're a bit more open, so the Gen Zs, a bit more open to new content, etc. So what we did there was follow more the sort of latest gaming trends, the latest sort of culture trends, whether that be TV, entertainment, movies, whatever it might be. And the results were really, really positive. And, we had two different KPIs. One was sort of new downloads and all the rest of it. And the other was, dwell time and, re-establishing themselves with a brand, a legacy brand that they were playing years and years ago. So, yeah, really well.
Great.
Yeah, and this has come up a couple of times in some of the other conversations, but the kind of long-form content kind of being having a lot more success than people might give it credit for or might initially think. So the campaign that I'll kind of call out as one that's doing really well, or one I thought did really well, was outside the kind of games category, but for Nissan. It was for the Aria car. It was a 4-hour long advert, 4-hour long lo-fi kind of YouTube advert for their vehicle, and it was just this kind of retro style animation of this woman in a passenger seat just driving with the kind of landscape changing. She's listening to the radio. and people absolutely loved
4
it.
hours. Wow.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, for ourselves, we're seeing kind of, really good completion rates for videos over 2 minutes, but this takes it to a whole new level for 4 hours. It's not something that I'd recommend to all of our partners out there, but it shows some kind of creative thinking. And off the back of it, they had massive engagement, great PR, millions of views, and they had 1,000% uplift in search off the back of it.
Nice.
So, I think it's okay. There's long form and then extremely long. Then there's Nissan long.
It's kind of like what Claire said earlier with working with influencers in terms of you need to like detail that product a bit more or something, that the platform you're able to with longer form content.
Well, I think they just nailed that whole kind of experience where, we've all had it, maybe not recently, we've just come out in traffic out there, but, those like really long, nice Sunday drives, the weather's nice, you've got some great music, you're not in a rush to get somewhere. And that's always the idyllic kind of moment when we're driving along, and they captured that in this form on YouTube, and that just really resonated.
Cool. Great. Any questions from the audience? Anyone got any questions?
What can non-endemic brands learn from gaming brands?
Good question. I think non-endemic brands, we have a challenge with a lot of our non-endemic brands that hear and see a lot about gaming, but they don't know how to go about it, or are nervous. Gamers are pretty harsh. They'll downvote things, they'll dislike things, they'll publicly call you out if you're not adding value. So, and there are some absolute horror stories out there of brands that have tried to engage with gamers, and it's not worked at all. So I think, looking at a gaming audience, just like anybody else, they still buy Fairy Liquid and Toilet Roll and all the rest of it. It's just that the environments that they happen to hang out in are a bit different to the normal ones, but they're not scary. They can be navigated with success. So, take the plunge and give it a go, because you never know what sort of success you might have.
Yeah, I think, be authentic, add value. I think I was at an event not so long ago where it was focused around non-endemics kind of and the game space, and we had various people there from across the industry. And one thing, was like, if you are supporting something that is benefiting its audience, then by affiliation and they know that your brand is helping them. So for instance, esports, if a company's coming in and they're sponsoring that event, that's in making that kind of it's enhancing the event, it's enhancing the reputation of the event itself for the community, and the community will rally behind it because they recognize that without the sponsor there isn't this event. So that's always a good way as well. So not just coming in and interrupting with a product placement or a banner ads that's kind of interfering with the experience. I think that's not the best way to do it. So, but if you can be, authentic, attached to kind of an event or as a sponsor, and add that value, then that's a really good way of kind of leaning into that space.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? No. Okay. So maybe just one final question then. Looking to the remainder of 26 and 27. What role do you see YouTube playing in your media strategy going forward? Is it same as always or change?
I mean, the platform's always evolving, as are a lot of other platforms. I think YouTube will probably increase in importance, certainly from our audience. I think, the decline of linear TV, the fact that, point that we touched on before, the fact that YouTube is being watched more on TV screens. I think those elements are going to sort of increase YouTube consumption, certainly from Gen X and Gen Y, where, it's appointment of view. So yeah, I see it becoming more important. I imagine that AI will probably refine it in some way. But yeah, it's going to be there. It's going to be important.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's becoming more of a central pillar for the converting attention to intent and revenue for our partners. So that will definitely stay that way. Is Izzy still here? I don't.
She left.
Okay.
You can say whatever you want.
No, because I was because obviously she made a big thing about shorts, which is really interesting. Because also they also had in the news that they were allowing users to remove them as well from their feeds because there'd been obviously some pushback from some of the kind of content creators. So watching that is going to be of interest for me this year, and how we can obviously incorporate in the right ways on people's plans if it's the right fit and it's the right content, and also maintain then the kind of review of long form content, and finding a partner that is happy for us to make a 5-hour video. Nice. Is the goal. Yeah.
We saw actually in our research with shorts that it's much more popular than males actually, while TikTok is more popular with females. So interesting with the gaming sector, it seems like they've really got a large audience there.
Yeah, I think, I think all of those short form platforms have a definite role to play. I think one also that we do a lot of work with is things like Reddit. That seems to be a quite sort of passionate gaming area, and we seem to get some good results from them, as we do with TikTok. And Twitch obviously still has relevance as well, certainly because it allows for that sort of live interaction and engagement, and that is valuable, right? Watching a game and interacting and asking questions at the same time is infinitely more valuable than 1,000 impressions and all the rest of it. So that still has a big role as well.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for a masterclass on YouTube, Gen Z Millennials. Yeah, Ashley and Greg. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you everyone for spending this morning with us. It was interesting, the discussions today, talking a lot about intent came up so many times, and engagement, no longer just reach, but engagement. Then it's wastage. Christian had a nice point from, and try something new, like a 4-hour long Nissan video as well. So yeah, thanks everyone, and see you at the next Clubhouse series.